They may sometimes look funky, but the flavor on a ripe Paul Robeson. This bed's been added as well, now that the greenhouse has been modified. There's a celery in the middle there because I had extras. All the Brad's atomic grapes I started seem to have somehow died, so I'm hoping there's enough time left in the season to harvest at least one tomato. Got some Brad's crazy cherries over here. These are yellow tomatoes when they ripen. But look at that. Oh my goodness, they're right. This is just one truss. And it's going to be crazy harvest on this thing. I hope they taste good. Anyways, well, a few weeks for these, hopefully, because they're about a full size. Pretty sweet. And there's more flowers coming in already. This is going to be an interesting one. The new bed seems to be doing well. Determinate tomatoes have been placed here. Yeah, get something to grow after the tomatoes are done. And my Paul Robeson tomato, which seems to be doing pretty well so far. Although look at the color of these. These are the red, darkest colored tomatoes I've seen at this stage of development, so it'll be interesting. And of course, more tomato plants. This is black Krim or something like that. At least one tomato on it so far. Plenty more on the way. No tomatoes on this one, but several flowers. And this guy is doing pretty well as well. Got one nice tomato on here. More flowers on the way. And then here, this is Tetons divinus. This plant has been incredibly scraggly. Difficult to manage. I didn't honestly think it would make it, but it seems to have recovered. And we're on the verge of getting flowers. This could be Amish paste as well. I kind of got my labels confused as I usually do, but we'll be able to tell pretty quickly. Different shaped tomatoes. Brad's crazy grapes, I think. I've already harvested 3 or 4 of them. Starting to get a blush on this tomato, which is that. And since it's going to rain tomorrow a lot, and today, harvesting this guy so it doesn't crack. Although this is kind of funky. It is what it is. Today's bounty, not so much. Roprecco, Black Beauty. I don't actually know if it's ripe enough to harvest yet. We'll find out. Boysenberries. Some small Romas. Sprouting broccoli, purple. A couple of cherry tomatoes and another Roma. Not significant, but not minor. On a whim, I planted an old Ace 55 tomato seed plant to see if it would still sprout. It's about 5 years old. It did. And my goodness, it is absolutely loaded with tomatoes. This puts Roma tomatoes to shame. I'm going to have 50 plus tomatoes on this thing. Keep having to support it because look at this thing, it's so massive. In this new bed where the greenhouse used to be, there are 4 determinate tomatoes. I don't currently recall which one's which, but we'll get a shot of that. They're growing kind of wild at this point, but the bed's still done pretty well. Although the one in the far right corner here has had a few issues with blossom and rot. But so far, it's the only plant in the garden that's had that issue. There you go, here. Yet another one from this same plant. Its location is probably contributing. It's kind of stuck in a corner here. But every other plant's doing well. And this one's got it too. Just get rid of it and move on. The first Amish paste in the in-ground garden is doing quite well despite not getting the best care. But at this point I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 tomatoes on it already, so I can't really complain. And one of them is starting to ripen. Black Beauty tomato. This one's about to start ripening. I've harvested 3 of these so far. My verdict on them, in terms of a sandwich tomato, I don't know that I'd recommend them. The skin is fairly thick. However, that said, it's a very meaty tomato, so it could make for a very good sauce. So I'll have to save enough to make at least a small batch of sauce, because I don't think I'd be growing this one again for fresh eating. But given the meat content as a sauce, it might be tasty. So we'll give it a try. Brad's Crazy Cherry is doing quite well. Already harvested a few handfuls, and it continues to produce pretty decent amounts. Flavor is pretty mild. I'd say on the sweeter side. There's a yellow tomato, so that makes sense. They do drop easily, so be aware of that. Not the biggest ones, they're just your typical cherry tomatoes. I'm not a huge tomato fan, although I am starting to become one. I can handle these tomatoes. Good in a salad, good on bruschetta. I would grow these again. Very productive, as the name implies. This is a volunteer tomato. I did not plant it. I'll However, having said that, it is likely the gold nugget tomato, because I did grow that last year. A determinate large cherry tomato. Similar to sun gold, but it doesn't seem to split as much. And obviously, size-wise, it's a bit bigger than sun gold. It's a decent size. Almost halfway between a cherry and a grape size. This is the back of a black Krim tomato. How cool is that? Look at that design. You get weird striations and stuff, but this is pretty neat. Homegrown plants are just so much more interesting than the store-bought crap you get. It can take a while to get over the look of some of these, although sometimes they look much better. They may sometimes look funky, but the flavor on a ripe Paul Robeson. This should be a pretty good sized one. Paul Robeson. This will be my second harvested tomato. So not quite as productive as the Black Beauty, but she's got 3 more, 4 more, a little bit funky looking. Oh, I actually cut one of these down this morning actually, so yeah. This one's about to ripen up as well. So let's see, not the most productive, but these were all home-kept seeds, as long as the quality is good. Second generation Amish paste, kept seeds. Seems to be doing quite well. Haven't harvested anything yet, but this one is starting to blush. And this one's about to start look at the size of this thing. This is going to be over a pound for one tomato. Amish paste is a good all-around fresh eating or sauce tomato. I will say though, it has more seeds than the Black Beauty. So I'm really interested in finding out what the Black Beauty is flavor-wise with a sauce. Maybe it's a, combination situation. I don't need to stick to a single tomato type for sauce. And in what has become the fastest growing vine of the tomatoes, Tetons de Venus. In my search for good sauce tomatoes, I came across this one, Tetons de Venus. The shape kind of tells you what's going on with this. Come on. This is also weird. Tetons de Venus. I wasn't sure how this would do at first because the plant was very scraggly. It looked like it was going to die pretty much every time I looked at it. Very floppy. No structure like most tomatoes. But it's doing well now. It is over 6 feet tall. And I've got about a dozen tomatoes on it. Hopefully the flavor's good. It should look good though. A creature ate this off the plant. I'm thinking it might be a rat. So, herb garden tomato plant. Delicious, apparently. canning is definitely an option I should be looking at. Tomatoes are pretty easy to grow. It would be cheaper in a way to store them in a cupboard versus everything in the freezer. They can handle the winter in the freezer though. So canning hasn't been my biggest priority for now. Brad's Atomic Grape. They seem to take a long time to ripen, but look at it, it's quite a nice. I have heard it looks nice, but the flavor is average, which for me could be a good thing. Oh, hello. Okay, I guess we're harvesting you. A little firm still. It's a nice size. This was planted later in the season. I figured even if I don't get a big harvest, at least I'll get a few to determine if it's worth growing again. Gonna eat a few and then sauce the rest. It's not gonna be a lot of sauce, but at least I'll know if it's worth growing as a sauce. Like this guy. Black Beauty, not my favorite as a fresh, thick-skinned, heavy on the meat, so maybe I'll get a good sauce out of it. One of the branches was removed by myself earlier in the season. I stuck it in the ground. That's it, nothing else. No treatment, no special cuttings, just shoved it in the ground. It looked dead, and then it wasn't dead, and now I've got 2 tomatoes. Alright, so we are starting our indoor gardening season with midget tomato seeds. That's Lily in the background there. We've got the limelight, but I've never grown I've grown plenty of tomatoes that started off green, but I've never grown an actual green tomato. So this should be interesting. Not sure what the flavor will be like. Time will tell. This is the last Paul Robeson of the season. I'll be harvesting this today, saving these seeds. So this will be the 2nd generation of Paul Robeson tomatoes. Amish paste. There's a few ripening here. They're pretty small, but they're ripening. I already harvested seeds from these, which are going to be 3rd generation. Then you got this guy here. This is a Tetons de Venus. Don't know that I'll be growing this one again next year. I got a few good-sized tomatoes out of it, but at least as a slicing tomato, flavor is very lacking. Hello.
A little longer than a few minutes later.
Tetons de Venus. Possibly my favorite tomato so far. You know what you can do with these things? I think the best option, other than maybe a nice tomato sauce, especially for slicing tomatoes, it's pretty simple. So good. So I'll have to save enough to make at least a small batch of sauce. This should be a pretty good sized one. Paul Robeson. And my goodness, it is absolutely loaded with tomatoes. This puts Roma tomatoes to shame. I'm gonna have 50 plus tomatoes on this thing. Harvested a few handfuls, and it continues to produce. Second generation Amish paste, kept seeds. Seems to be doing quite well. I haven't harvested anything yet, but this one is starting to blush. And this one's about to start Look at the size of this thing. This is going to be over a pound for one tomato.